we are in the Naked Zone doing another component meal. This is a barbecue quinoa bowl. Don't be left out when people are putting some meat on the grill. We're going to do some mushroom medallions and some baby zucchini. Very basic, simple recipe as usual. Cutting our mushrooms into little medallion sized pieces. Look how pretty that is. And we're going to lay these onto a cookie sheet with a little bit of olive oil. And of course, then we're going to lay our zucchini as well onto the cookie sheet. Now, you can use any kind of mushroom. These are cremini, which are your normal button mushrooms. The ones that are just white don't have as many vitamins. These are nice and these have a lot of minerals from the earth. You can see that they're nice and brown, covered in the dirt of the earth. You can also use any kind of wild mushroom if you prefer. Shiitake has the most amount of protein, and of course there's lobster, oyster, and many, many more. But I like the way these look. I think these show up really nice. And you can get these pretty much all year round. Using baby zucchini is not always an option. Make sure it's organic. You can also just get a large zucchini, cut it on the bias, or you can cut it into a diagonal shape. Lay it out, whatever looks nice for you. Okay, so here we have our cookie sheet of medallions and zucchini. And using a basting brush, just lightly cover your vegetables with a small light coating of olive oil. Okay, so the key ingredient to barbecue is, of course, barbecue rub. I like to buy a barbecue rub that is fresh herbs, that is great for fish, vegetables, or poultry because it tends to be a little lighter. If you get one that's for beef, it might have a little too much flavor and then will overpower the vegetables. And just slightly sprinkle that onto your medallions. Now I have preheated the oven to 350, and I'm going to put this in for approximately 5 minutes. We don't want to overcook them. We want them to be a little crispy, just enough to give them a nice sweat and a little bit of browning on the top. Okay, so one of the components to the quinoa barbecue bowl is a kale slaw. I call it kale slaw because it's your normal slaw, cabbage shredded up, and then you add the kale to really boost up the vitamin B, the K, and all that, protein and calcium. So here we have a nice shredded cabbage and kale. You can use any kind of kale recipe, coleslaw recipe, excuse me. But this particular one is basic brown rice vinegar, which actually works on the liver very well. Some of the vinegars are really harsh, so you don't want to use too much. Apple cider vinegar tends to be a little too harsh for this particular recipe. And then we've got some raw wild honey. Top it off with some wonderful sea salt and, of course, ground pepper. Remember, you can add carrots to this, you can add celery seed, anything that you're used to putting in your slaw. Just make sure you add the kale. Okay, we're going to blend this up. Well, that was loud. And we're going to pour it on. I'm just going to pour that right on top. Now, with kale, we like to really mix things in so it can soak up the flavors, but also we want to break down the kale a little bit. So we're going to let this sit and marinate while we're making the barbecue sauce. We're all a little picky about our barbecue sauce, and you know, there's some people like more hickory smoke, some people like more maple syrup, some people like a little spicy. This is a basic recipe that I particularly like. Remember, you can add anything extra as long as it's within the Naked Zone, okay? So we're going to start with some fresh tomatoes. Roman tomatoes are really fabulous. They have a lot of flavor. And then we're going to also put in some sun-dried tomatoes that have been soaked for 1 to 2 hours. I get these at farmers markets, so they're very fresh. When you buy them at the store, they tend to be a little saltier. And because these aren't, we may have to add a little bit of salt for flavor. Always keep the water on the side. We're going to use that to create the consistency that we're looking for in this recipe. Garlic cloves, normally 1 to 2, depending on how garlicky you like your sauces. some apple cider vinegar to give it that tang, and a sweet onion. I like shallots. You can also use a red onion. You can use any kind of onion that you particularly like. Even green onions would work, but I like shallots. They have a sweet taste to them. And some maple syrup, just to pull that all together. So this is a hickory maple barbecue sauce. All right, some salt and pepper. That was Himalayan sea salt, and of course a little bit of liquid smoke. Now, this is optional, it is not a raw product. I'm going to put about a half teaspoon in there, maybe a dash more. And then we're going to blend away. Keep your water handy and have a little extra water on the side. Your tomato water for this, and is also extra water. Excuse me. Here we go. We're going to use a plunger for this one because we want our barbecue sauce to be a little bit thick. Start on your low speed, just to get everything mixed together. All right, let's take a little taste. Interesting, I've made this recipe several times, and usually from store-bought sun-dried tomatoes. This is the first time I made it with the tomatoes from Farmer's Market, which are fresher, and I didn't have to add any of the water. Always taste. It's pretty phenomenal. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the Vitamix on high for about 3 minutes because I want my barbecue sauce to be warm. Not cooked, but warm for assembling the quinoa bowl. Okay, it's the perfect temperature. Do you see the steam coming out of that? Woo! Now I did add a little bit of the tomato water to this recipe to get it to the consistency that I want it. All right, let's go take our medallions out of the oven. Okay, here we go. Look at that, perfectly done, beautiful. Now we're going to assemble the bowl. Now I have had my rice cooker going. The beautiful thing about a timer on a rice cooker is that you can make this ahead of time and it'll keep it warm while you're making all the other things. And inside we have the most delicious quinoa. So we're going to plate that up. Quinoa first. Quinoa is so wonderful. This is a complete protein. It will never weigh you down, always fill you up, and satisfy you. All right, and then we're going to place some of our medallions onto this wonderful grain bowl. Here we go. Throw our zucchini over the top. Nice. Drizzle it with our barbecue sauce. I know you guys are thinking, wow, this is amazing. If you're like me, my mouth is watering at the smell of it. I can smell the vinegar and the maple syrup. They kind of go in and give you a little squirt in your mouth. And top it off with a wonderful kale slaw. Now if you go to the recipe section of the member zone, you know that we have also a creamy kale slaw, and that is just a little twist on this simple dish. Another component meal for the Naked Zone.